right. It is the Coach's Compass, and we are back for episode number 5. It's your boy, Coach Coop, my boy, Jay, here for episode number 5. Again, always tuning in from this side of the world here in Europe. And today we're bringing back what we discussed in episode 4, discussing a little bit more about programming, because it's a huge, huge part in strength and conditioning. And I want to kick it back to my boy, Jay, to go ahead and elaborate a little bit more about what he was talking about with programming, but now we're going to switch it over to elite level athletes. So his pro athletes that he's training. So take us through, I guess, I don't even know what part we want to start. Do we want to start like preseason? Do we want to start in season, off season? Or when you first get an athlete? Yeah, like when you first get a pro athlete in, I guess we can start from where you guys are right now. You know, you've got your imports coming in right now for the ELF team, and all your team is kind of getting together now to kind of get ready for camp and get ready for the season. What are you doing to program for these guys?
I kind of want to throw you in here too, because like even now, well, yesterday it's crazy that we were talking about this today, but yesterday we had an import meeting with all the imports and kind of just talking about expectations and everything. And at the end of the meeting, head coach passed it off to me and was just like, hey, you know, Jabre has programmed for you guys. And I kind of just introduced myself, and a lot of the guys, so you'll have older guys that are imports, you'll have younger guys, right? Some of the younger guys probably still don't have a routine yet and don't know how to train, right? And then the older guys like you or I, we know how to train. We know what works for us. We know our own injury history. We know things that we battle with throughout the season. So there's two parts of it that you have to take into account with some of these athletes. So I kind of just let them know, like, my main thing is at the end of the day, they brought you guys in because you guys are great athletes and perform well, right? And we're on a timeline now where it's like, I'm not here to increase your broad jump and make you run faster. It's a little too late for that. You know, it's a little too late for that.
Way too late for that, right?
It's way too late for that.
If you do it, it's probably going to put you at a little bit of a risk of some things that might happen during season, but
exactly, because just like we have practice going on, so I'm over here trying to increase your performance, and then you have the explosive stuff you're already doing on practice, so you know those you can't, you know, there's a lot of the same stresses going on. But for right now, like what I kind of told them, I was just like, hey, I'm going to give you guys kind of just like a plan to just like mitigate soft tissue injuries as much as possible, because I feel like that's what we've dealt with in the past, where imports that come in and they haven't ran. That's like my biggest pet peeve, where like a lot of these imports have just like been gymming, and they come here and they're just like, all right, like I'm ready to go, like my body feels good, and I'm just like, you haven't been doing any running. And then they come out here, and I may give them a program, they probably don't do it, and first practice, groin, hammy, you know, and it's just like, you got a lot of, even some of the older guys do not know how to prepare still. So kind of just giving them, exactly. So I'm just kind of going to want to give them something to kind of, you know, mitigate injuries to our best ability, which will kind of consist of more so like a lot of running, you know, just building up a good running volume just to introduce their body to that, because we've already been practicing. That's one thing too. I feel like you already know, like a lot of these guys have already been practicing. The Hungarians have been practicing already. So these Americans just come back into practice. Americans just jump right into practice. So it's like, you're kind of just, you got to play catch up, and we have no idea what you've already been doing personally. So I'm trying to get them up to speed as fast as possible.
And that's probably the hardest part, coming in as an import and being, you know, even a younger or an older guy, is that feeling that you already have what you have, so like you don't need another program. I think you got to come in with the mindset of always being willing to learn, and what pieces can you take from someone else's program and implement into yours, to be able to use it to make yourself a better athlete and to maybe help injury prevention and also work on that soft tissue. But nothing is going to replicate being in shape if you haven't run at all, right? So if you haven't run at all and all you've been doing is lifting and maybe some explosive work, it's not gonna it'll help you, right? But you're gonna put yourself still at a very big risk of injury if you haven't done any conditioning before preseason camp or anything like that, because we run a lot in football, right? When you get into practice, you get into camp, right? Like you're running a lot, and it's a lot of beat up on the body, and it's a lot of change of direction stuff too. Especially depending on what position you play, right? If you're a receiver, DB, line, all the positions. Let's be honest, all the positions is a lot of change of direction. If you haven't done any conditioning with change of direction in there too, man, you are now putting yourself even more behind the 8 ball. Because like you said, the Hungarians have already been practicing. And that's the same way it was for me when I came here to Austria. They were already practicing, right? So they were on camp 3 when I got here. And when I landed, I didn't participate in camp 3. One, because I know my body well enough. I just gotten off a plane. I landed, I think, on a Friday or a Saturday. They had practice that Saturday. I'm just flying from America. I'm not practicing, right? I'm going to take my time to get ready and get acclimated and whatnot. 2, I just it's hard to jump straight into camp. Like, we're not talking about just practice, one practice that day and then take a day off. And we're talking about camp, where you've got a 2-a-day. That's tough on the body. So if you haven't done any conditioning to be prepared for that, you now are really risking a lot on the body to be able to make it through now the whole season. So then say you haven't done any conditioning. All you've been doing is explosive work and some strength training. And then you go into camp. You hurt a hamstring, you hurt a groin, whatever it may be. Knock on wood, hope this doesn't happen to anybody, right? But it does happen. That's the honesty of the sport. You're behind now because now you're injured.
Yep.
So then you're playing even more catch up, because then you got to go to rehab, right? You got to go to treatment and all that stuff. You got to be able to get back to, we're not even going to say we get back to 100%, because nobody ever gets back to 100% after injury, because now the season is getting around the corner and you're trying to rush yourself back. So you're about 90, 95%, if that, right? And then you're trying to get back into practice and then into getting ready for games.
And then if you're an import, just like I told him yesterday, if you have that soft tissue injury, your clock starts ticking. Your clock is ticking now.
Right away. So for a guy like that, for a guy that gets a soft tissue injury and they are an import, how would you program for them, and how would you, help them, maybe potentially get back on the field a little bit quicker, or, navigate the road of being injured?
I think, and that's one thing about it that gets very difficult, and sometimes I don't like about it, but sometimes it is what it is. But some of these guys come in, where our guys got in this week and we're not allowed to start practicing until Saturday, and then the game's on May 25th. So if some of these guys haven't done proper preparation, you have to condense, a preseason kind of off season into one, right? And what does that look like? What would that look like without you also killing them, right? So trying to figure out what that would look like. I've talked to a few of the guys; they've already been running. All right, we're in great shape there. For me, guys coming in that don't have any pre-existing injuries, for me, that kind of looks like me trying to build up as much capacity as we can for your output, right? So some of these guys, the majority of the guys, have a crazy high output, but they'll come in with a low capacity for that output. And then we'll have 2 or 3 practices in a day. And then the following day, hammy pulled. And it's some guys will be like, oh, he's not strong enough, or, and it's just that's not the issue. A lot of the times the issue is they didn't do a true off season and they have no capacity for their output. So for me right now, just trying to build up as much output as I can. What that will look like for me is what we do is a lot of tempo runs. If you kind of do research, skill positions, the amount of yards they cover in I guess an NFL game And I think it'd probably be similar in ELF just because of the time. The times of the quarters are about the same, but it's like 3,000 yards for skill. So they'll do like and obviously we're not going to do 3,000 yards to start, but we'll start off with half that. So we'll do like 100-yard tempo, right? So you'll do a 75% sprint all the way down the field. And obviously we're not looking for output. We're looking for more so capacity. So you'll do a 75% sprint all the way down the field. And then you'll do, once you get down there, I'll give you like a hamstring isometric or a quad isometric or a calf isometric. And then once you finish with that isometric, you'll jog back down. And we'll try and get in like 1,000 or 1,500 yards. And then that's it. And then you can go inside, hit your little lift, right? That's kind of what my plan will look like, and just building up a running volume for them just to expose their body to that. So when we actually come out on the field, then we're going at these, we're hitting these high outputs and they're running routes full speed. They have the capacity to maintain those outputs for an entire practice, and then for an entire game, and then for an entire season. But what my return to play kind of looks like last year, and I've taken a lot of my philosophy from Squat University with a lot of the stuff is like usually more so come in and assess instead of what I used to do personally is just like, oh, it's a hamstring. All right, let's get straight to this. But coming in assessing, where it's just like, we'll assess the joints around the hamstring. We'll see like what your mobility looks like. And sometimes there may be no limiting factors and it's just a hamstring pull. And, it may be a strength thing. So we'll address strength, but trying to figure out what it is and then coming up with a plan to figure out. But for me, a lot of my stuff looks like isometric. It's like a slow to fast. So we'll start off with as slow as possible, which is isometrics, and then we'll progress into sprinting.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like talk a lot. The end from.
You said like a lot of these guys have a big output, but small capacity. Now, how are you, for yourself and for your athletes, how are you judging their capacity or getting to know how much capacity they have for the output and being able to program around that? Because I think that's super interesting to like know that you're talking about like an elite athlete, right? A guy that can run slants, posts, digs, all like goes out there and like he can go up, get the ball, right? He like they're doing the elite stuff, right? But their body just can't handle doing it over and over and over again. How are you testing the athlete's capacity?
That gets very difficult, testing athletes' capacity. I've never really like thought or looked into that, testing an athlete's capacity. For the most part, I kind of just throw them into, what my protocol is, and then we'll progress them from there. Usually you can see like if they're dying, they lack capacity. Right. And if they're not, they probably do have it. Or sometimes, I have guys that'll do tempo sprints, 100 yards, 100 yards, walk 50, 100 yards, walk 50. And they'll do that for 10 minutes and be like, that was a breeze. And I'm just like, sometimes these are athletes that have prepared well and know what they're doing. And, I like to implement that even throughout the season, just because it's the opposite end of what they're getting in their sport. And I feel like it is helpful and healthy and kind of like a prehab. But I think one good example of what I see of like a lack of, and I see it a lot in the weight room, but the lack of capacity and the high output is one example that kind of like was like a shock to me. But like why I love the 1x20 method, like I was talking about the other day, was I had two guys that came in on a testing day and they had the same bench press max, right? And the following week when we got back into the phase, the guy that was new to the program that had just started with us was just like, hey, I want to join his group. And I was like, I know you're strong, but let's start here. And this was a point where I was kind of new to strength and conditioning. I didn't have a rationale for why he couldn't start here, but I was just like, let's just start here, build you up. And he kept badgering me about it. I was like, all right, fuck it. I already have like 30 kids in here. Go ahead, join the group. And when they're starting off, I think we had like 3 sets of 10. And obviously they're operating at the same weight. First set of 10, they both knocked out. The second set of 10, the guy that had done all the programs leading up to where he was at now, did another set of 10. The other guy did 7. Third set, my guy that's been with the program, that's been steady, does another set of 10. Other guy does 5. And for me, that's what capacity versus output looks like, where it's just like capacity, output may be high, but you have no capacity to maintain those outputs over the course of 3 sets. And that's kind of what, for me, that looks like with running, where it's like, you can run these routes. You can probably run these routes and be good for a couple, maybe a practice. But what does that look like when we have a practice that afternoon or the following day? It's like your body's ability to recover is not as high because you have no capacity. That's also another thing. Yep. It's just like your body's ability to recover is not high because you have no capacity. It's just like there's a lot of health benefits to just implementing capacity in your day-to-day training.
That's like a receiver going out and running 2-3 posts like in a practice, and then that in Skelly, and now we still got team left, right? And you still got to run another 5-6 posts, but you're running them now at 60-70% because you don't have the capacity to run them at the speed that you were running them back in Skelly. So that makes perfect sense now, like talking about capacity and just building up to get that output all the time, because I think a lot of our athletes miss on the fact that you might be able to do it once or twice at that output, but can you do it for a full game, right? Yeah, like we're not talking like fourth quarter is tough, right? Everybody knows you get into that fourth quarter, you're in a tight game, right? It's tough, but can you operate around 85 to 90% of your output in that fourth quarter? Because if not, then your capacity just isn't there. You know what I mean? Like you can look great in the first half, but in the second half you come out and now you're just sluggish. Like you're not prepared. You're not ready. And that's how you got to be able to stay on the field. Yeah,
exactly.
And then we talk about, because the next biggest thing is like, because summer's around the corner, and the big thing that because we experienced it growing up, is camps. Camps are coming up. Camps, combines. We just watched the NFL Combine a couple months ago. The NFL Draft is coming up. And it's a hard thing, I want to say, here in Europe to really get ready for these combines, because combine drills are tough. They're tricky. They're very methodical. You know what I mean? There's a lot of breakdown to it. And so you have kids that come in and ask you to help you get them ready for camps and combines. Now, when they first come in and ask you about this, what's probably the first thing that you do? So if I'm a 16-year-old kid that says, "Hey, coach, I got camp," and we're in April right now, probably in mid-April, and I got camp in June, and I've got to be able to run a 40, and I want to run. They're going to say some ridiculous number, but I'm going to keep it realistic.
Yeah. I ran a 4.45 with my coach. Yeah. It's
we're going to say realistic. I
want to run iPhone. He timed it on my iPhone.
Yeah, I want to run a 4.6, but I don't have any training. What do you do?
That's honestly one thing where, like, with regards to sports performance, that I lack. Honestly, I would honestly be like, hey, hit up my boy Coop, because like I really don't excel. I don't excel in that. I remember I think you were here one time, and I was kind of like watching when you were doing, you were teaching one of the young kids, like a 3-point stance, like for 40, which I'm just like, I never really dove into. And I feel like and that's the thing, a lot of people kind of shit on it, and I used to too, but it has a place in the sports performance world with regards to, it's a niche. Les Spellman masters in it, I know you're really good at it, but like with regards to like the 5-10-5 and all the different techniques that people teach with the crossover and like the different starts and like the 40-yard start, and I'd honestly pass that over to you. I'm more so interested in what you have to say in all the preparation.
So I used to hate combine drills because, like, the L drill, being a taller guy, it's hard to bend down, touch, come back around. Like, it's tricky. 5-10-5, right? That crossover run to start off with the first 5, and then getting low to touch the line, coming back. I didn't start to love it until I actually trained for the combine for my pro day with Matt Gates down in what was formerly FitSpeed, but now XPE Sports down in Fort Lauderdale with Matt
Oh,
Gates and Tony
XPE.
Villani. Yeah.
Oh, nice.
So
I like that. I
so
like
I
that
got to
place a
train
lot.
underneath those guys and learn a lot. And I found out how you got to fall in love with the process, like we talk about with everything. There's such a process because I can't lie to you guys. When I first ran it, came in and we tested the first day, my 40 was a 4.62, right?
Mhm.
Nothing pretty, right? From the start, had my legs were too far, my feet were too far back, right? As soon as I started, I stood straight up and just started running, right? Like I had speed, but
Yeah.
throughout the whole process, we tested which leg is my leg that's best to push off of, which hand I should have down, right? When we got into the 5-10-5, like seeing which side is my better side of starting with. Am I better going to the right first, or am I better going to the left? In the L drill, right? When we're going to that, it's what I think we had four steps out, 3 steps coming back, right? Not making the turns tight, making them like it's NASCAR, like you're rounding it off, right? Because everybody thinks that when you get into that L drill, like you got to go straight to the cone, come straight back, come up, make a cut like you're running it out, get as tight as you cone,
Hmm.
make a cut, coming back downhill, right? And if you make it like curves, you can run it smoother. So there's so many
Yeah.
things to it and pieces to it, and that's not to say that I know the perfect way about it. I just like studying the every little pieces of the drills and breaking it down as far as you can, to make it easier for the athletes. So when you go out there and have to do it, it's simple, right? So it's just like
Yeah.
second nature to where you're not thinking about, okay, when I run here, I need to do this. And when I run back, I need to do this, and then hit here and come back. And like, it's science. There's a lot of science behind it, but it's fun. So if I had a kid that's coming into me and saying that, Coach, yeah, I need to be prepared for June. Well, first I need to test them on all this stuff. But when I test them,
Yeah.
I also need to have this all on video, right? Because I think the best way to teach a lot of these athletes and these kids on how to get better at the combine stuff is not only telling them and showing them like yourself, but also showing them what they're doing and where they need to fix it at. And that's a
I
huge,
love
because we
that.
do it in football. Like you got to think about it. Like all our practices are recorded. We watch film on games
Yep.
and everything. We like, not all of us are able to learn by learning on the whiteboard. Like a lot of us have to learn, are visual learners. I'm a visual learner. Like if you
Yeah.
gave me a playbook, I'm gonna look at it and be like, yeah, sure, like yeah, I got it, but I got to go out and run it a couple of times to actually understand it. And that was the
Yeah.
same way with the combine drills. Like you could tell me like how to line up and do all this stuff, but if I don't see how I've done it incorrectly and how to do it correctly, I like it doesn't transfer over. You know what I mean? So recording
Yeah.
the stuff, I mean, and having measurements, having the numbers. So having the numbers of where they start at, and then depending on how many weeks they have, and this is a big thing that I learned from Matt Gates, is that throughout the whole time, I never have them run a 40 again until a week before the camp or before the test or whatever it is. I mean, we never run a
And why is
full
that?
out
Is that
40.
because like the risk of injury, or is that
Risk of injury, and
is
there's so
that
many pieces that we need to work in between there, right?
yeah.
So there's so many other types of sprinting that we need to work on. We need to work on that start. We need to work on that first 10, right? We need to work on the build up, right? So we don't test the 40 again until it's getting closer because of, yes, a very big risk of injury, and how much
Yeah.
work we're doing with the body. And just the workouts that also go into play with this. Like there's so much explosive work that we have to go into, but it's so designed. Like, yes, we'll say the combine drills don't relate to football, right? They don't. You don't ever get a chance to just run a straight line, right? That's very, very rare that you run a straight line that nobody touches you and you're to the crib, right?
Yeah.
5-10-5. I don't ever know when you run 5 yards one way, touch the line, run back 10 yards, touch the line, and run back through. Like, I don't know when that ever comes in. Or the L drill, don't know when you do that. 60-yard
There is
shuttle.
something a little bit more like there is something that like I think I love about that I've kind of fallen in love with the combine testing a lot or training or coaching it is like it's very much like track now, where it's like in football, I may get you faster, but that may not make you a great athlete. I may get you stronger, but like with combine testing or like with track, the the we're gonna find out if I've gotten you better immediately.
Yep.
It's immediate feedback, so
Yep.
that really, I feel like that's like that my value as a coach. I kind of feel like a little bit more proud where it's just like, you're getting immediate feedback on like if this worked or if it didn't work. That's one
That I
that's
think
one part about it that I really love.
I think that's why I enjoy it so much, because like you said, it's like track. You know what I mean? Like, you could get an athlete at the beginning of the season that runs 100-meter at like 10.8. You know what I mean? What did you do to help them to potentially qualify for state, or at the end of the season they're running now like 10.5, 10.4. You know what I mean? Like, whatever state
Yeah.
you're in, maybe that's a little slow, but then maybe they're running at 10.2. Like, oh shoot, coach, like what did you do in there? That helped them get to this point. And we don't have the same equipment of what we have in the States, right? So if you look at XP,
Yeah.
they got the shred mills, and those things are crazy.
What's that?
Right. The shred mill. So this is another reason why they don't ever have, like, they don't really ever run the 40s ever again, is because they have so many, so much equipment to use to like
Uh-huh.
to study speed, and
Is it that curve sprint?
No, that's a different one. So now they have this one that's like it's just like a treadmill, right? But it's all self-propelled, right? But it's like the resistance is based off of magnets, and it tests not only like how fast you're running on it, but how much power you're putting into the treadmill by each step. You know what I mean? And you have your own code that you go in and you punch in, and it records each time you get on there. So you're able to see, where. So like if you're running at an uphill, you're running an incline, right? And say you build up the top speed and you're trying to hold it, but have a deficiency to where you fall off. You know what I mean? Like, then they're able to tell where that is and be able to backtrack.
I think I've seen those before. Now that you're saying it,
dude, it's crazy.
It's flat, right? It's the flat ones.
It's flat. It's flat, but it's always flat. But you can always raise it at like different inclines.
I've seen people hop on there and it's already at speed. That one is just like crazy.
So that one, I think that one that's the one that we used to use when I was at FitSpeed with Matt. And that's when like Ocho used to come in, and he would come in and like put it at like 24 and just like let the thing just like roll, and just like you would kick, and then you would hop on and you would just like you would run like because you're trying to go. Now I only got it to 23,
that ability,
but it's scary, bro.
Crazy.
It is scary because like you're holding on to the rails. You take one foot and you kick it. You kick it right because you're trying to feel the speed, feel
it out.
And then that like when you're ready to go, you kick going, and then like if you don't do it, bro, you go.
Oh no, I'm seeing that. You're gonna be parallel with the sled.
Yeah. But
we may have to put like an example at the top of what that looks like.
And listen, I can show you. I'll put an example in here of the shred mill, and I'll also put an example of I think they're called the woodways or whatever they are.
I've heard of them. Woodways, yeah.
I have examples of those from when I was training for combine stuff. But combine drills are always very interesting. I would say get with a coach that knows how to break it fully all the way down. A coach that brings you in and tests you. We're not testing using any of those iPhone numbers. Those things do not count. When your dad was out there 40 yards away from you, or maybe he was only 35 yards away from you, or maybe he was 50 yards away from you. And he
I actually have a question too. It's like for you, when you help prepare people, or like when you prepared in the past for combines, you have the L drill, you have the 5-10-5, you have the vertical jump, you have a broad jump, you have a 40. It's like, how are you preparing for all 5 of these metrics in 2 months?
Yeah, if you got 2 months, you got to break it down day by day, right? So each drill.
So 5 days a week training.
Yeah, so 5 days a week, each day has their own drill. right?
Yeah.
So 40 has a day, 5'10", 5 has a day, L has a day, vertical has a day, and broad jump has a day. Now, you also sometimes, some of these combines, they'll test also the bench in there too. So usually
Oh,
you'll
shit.
pair the bench, you'll put the bench in with like the vertical day. But yeah, you're going 5 days a week, but you're also going twice a day because we got to figure out where in there. Like, so usually the morning session is always going to be the part that we work on, you know, the sprint mechanics, your explosiveness, all that stuff. Then the second part of the day, we're going to work on the lifts, right? To that implement that kind of correlate with whatever we did in the morning.
Yeah.
So it's tricky. It's hard. You really gotta
Yeah.
like dial it all in and see what fits with what, but also pay attention to how your athlete is like their body is reacting to it, because that first week is hell, bro. Like, it seems very easy, like it's not going to be that much, but the first week actually really really sucks. It's like the curve in anything, right? Like, you start off, you're going
Yeah.
up, right? Then you hit that plateau, then you go down, right? You got to get out of the valley, then you kind of start. So you got to figure out where you need them to peak at the very end. Where
Yeah.
do you need them to peak at, and have it all
That hey,
programmed out. And sometimes,
that's performance training right there, boy.
yeah, and
You like I can't even shit on that. That is really like that is performance training. It doesn't correlate to sport, but like but at the end of the day, it's just like there's a lot of opportunities that come out of just like you running a good 40. Like,
right. Like,
your
you got
draft
cats
pick,
that,
your draft stock.
yeah, like there's who Trey McBride or whatever who that came out of William Mary. You got guys that have come out of like small schools that show up at the combine and run these crazy 40 numbers, and they get a chance. Or you got that corner that came out of UConn that jumped ridiculous,
Yeah.
gets a chance. You know what I mean? So you don't know the opportunities that might come from it. You just got to be prepared. You know what I mean? Because I remember when I was going through that the whole process, they were telling me, like, in order to actually like get a look, to get an opportunity, right, you've got to be able to do numbers that are better than the guys that went to the combine, or at least comparable to them, right? So if that doesn't take, that's a guy in America playing at Division I school trying to go to the NFL. So for all my European guys, that means now you must run numbers better. And just be honest, you've got to run numbers better than majority of the American athletes to get an opportunity. Otherwise, why would I take somebody from Europe that potentially could get homesick or has never been to America or is not super fluent at the language, and give them a scholarship to come over when I can just take somebody from America when there's thousands of kids over there?
Yeah.
So the combine camp stuff becomes important. So if you have an opportunity this summer to go to some camps, go ahead and check them out. There are plenty of camps this summer. I know starting in June, rolling all the way through, there are hundreds. There are plenty of camps to get to. Do your research on them. Now, I wasn't a big camp guy. I went to 2 camps coming out of high school. And my boy Jay went to a little bit more, because we talked about it a little bit before the episode, that it was kind of a blue collar thing. And it is a shock sometimes you go to these camps, because you do have some guys that show up and, oh boy, there's some dudes.
Boys,
so for the kids, but the good thing about it for the Europeans is get to these camps that have kids from other countries, so you can see what you're going up against, not only from your own country, but from other countries here in Europe, and then be able to be coached by others, because you never know when you show up at these camps what coaches are going to be there, because there could be a coach at one camp that maybe potentially didn't like you that much. There could be a coach at another camp that loves you, and that could be your opportunity right there to get to America. So if you have opportunities to get to camps, go ahead and do that this summer. Talk to your parents, get everything set up, and get with a coach that can help you prepare, get ready for these camps. Now, I know a lot of you guys are in season. Now, there are some things that you can still do while you are in season that will help you get prepared for these camps. But besides that, for our first interview coming up, man, it's a great one. Shout out to all of our followers for dropping his name. And shout out to the man himself. Hit me up on IG. Loves what we're trying to build here. My man, Sam Portland, out of the UK. Crazy background. Trained a lot of pro athletes. NFL, CFL, ELF, rugby, soccer, all that stuff. We've been watching a lot of his Instagram. Me and Jay have been sending things back and forth, what he's been doing, the timing mechanisms he has, the workouts he's been putting people through. Like, bro, I'm excited to get him on.
No, yeah,
I'm not even going to, like, there's nothing more I really need to say about him because he's going to come on here and drop a whole bunch of knowledge for you guys. And if you guys have questions, you have things you want to see, hear, or him talk about, go ahead and drop those questions down below in the comment section, and we're going to ask him himself. And you get the opportunity to learn a lot from a guy that's been around and done a lot of great things. So that's episode number 5. A great one. A lot to learn in there.
Rolling.
But stay tuned for episode number 6.